Hey everyone, and Happy New Year! Welcome to 2026. January is not starting the way most people expected for millions of Americans on Social Security, SSI, and SSDI. This month is already shaping up to be one of the most confusing and one of the most important starts to a new year we've seen in a long time. Payments are changing, timelines are shifting, and some of the updates flying under the radar right now could directly affect the money you're counting on to survive. If you rely on these benefits, or if someone you love does, you need to hear this all the way through. What's happening in January isn't just about a check hitting your account, it's about adjustments, recalculations, and government decisions that are quietly rewriting what your benefits look like going forward. Some people are seeing increases, others are seeing delays, and a growing number of recipients are opening their bank accounts and asking one alarming question: why does this look different? Here's the thing: every January brings changes, but this January is different. This year, multiple updates are colliding at once: cost of living adjustments, payment schedule shifts, eligibility reviews, administrative changes inside the system. And when all of that hits at the same time, confusion follows fast. You may have already heard rumors. Maybe someone told you checks are bigger. Maybe you heard payments are late. Maybe you saw headlines claiming new benefits, bonus money, or emergency relief. Before you get too excited or too worried, you need the full picture. Some of what's being shared right now is only half the story. And half the story can be dangerous when your rent, groceries, and medication depend on these payments. Now, here's what should get your attention. Officials are confirming that January payments are being processed under new calculations. That means amounts may not match what you received in December, and for some people, that difference could feel significant. We're talking about real dollars, money that decides whether you stretch your budget or fall short before the month is over. But that's not all. January also resets the calendar for benefit reviews, income limits, and reporting requirements. Miss something here and it could trigger delays or even temporary suspensions later on. That's why this matters right now. Not next month, not later this year, but right now. Let's break down what's changing behind the scenes, why the government made these moves, and how it all connects to your check. What happens next may surprise you, and more importantly, it could change how you plan your entire year. You're not alone in this, and by the end of this update, you'll know exactly where you stand. Let's slow this down and talk about what's actually happening behind the scenes, because this is where most people get tripped up. January payments don't just magically change. They change because the system resets, and when it resets, everything from how your benefit is calculated to when your money arrives can be affected. First, let's talk about the numbers. January is when updated benefit amounts officially kick in. That includes cost of living adjustments that were decided months ago but only start showing up now. On paper, it looks simple. Prices went up, benefits were adjusted, end of story. But here's the truth most people don't hear. That adjustment isn't applied in isolation. It's layered on top of income rules, Medicare premiums, tax withholding choices, and eligibility thresholds that also reset in January. So what happens? Some people see a bump in their gross benefit, but their net amount barely changes. Others see a bigger increase than expected, and some are shocked to see less than they thought they'd receive. That's not a mistake. That's how the math works when multiple adjustments hit at once. Now, let's talk about timing. January is notorious for payment confusion. Social Security, SSI, and SSDI do not all follow the same schedule. SSI payments are typically issued at the very beginning of the month. Social Security retirement and SSDI payments depend on birth dates and benefit categories. When weekends or holidays land near the start of the year, schedules can shift without much warning. This January, those calendar quirks matter more than usual. Some payments arrive earlier than expected, others land later. And for people living month to month, even a few days' delay can feel like a crisis. Rent doesn't wait. Utilities don't wait. And the system doesn't always explain these shifts clearly. Here's something even more important. January is also when the government updates income limits and eligibility rules. This affects SSI recipients especially. If you earn even a small amount of extra income, or if your living situation changed last year. January is when the system takes a fresh look, and that review doesn't always come with a friendly warning. People assume, nothing changed for me, so nothing will change with my benefits. But that assumption gets people into trouble every year, because even if your life feels the same, the thresholds around you may have moved. And when those thresholds move, your benefit calculation moves with them. Now, let's talk about administrative changes. This part doesn't get enough attention. January is a reset month for processing priorities. Files are updated, backlogs are reassigned, automated reviews are triggered, and when that happens, some accounts get flagged for additional verification. That doesn't mean you did anything wrong, but it can mean delays if the system needs confirmation. This is why some people see their payment pending longer than usual, or why a deposit shows up later in the day, or why a letter suddenly appears in the mail asking for information that hasn't been requested in years. January wakes the system up. Here's where misinformation spreads fast. You'll hear claims about bonus checks, surprise payments, or new programs launching immediately. The reality is more complicated. There are adjustments, there are recalculations, and there are ongoing discussions at higher levels that may turn into changes later, but not everything happens overnight. Before you get too excited, understand this. Most January changes are structural, not flashy. They don't come with press conferences. They show up quietly in deposit amounts, payment dates, and notices most people don't read closely. That's exactly why so many people feel blindsided. But knowledge changes everything. When you understand that January is a recalibration month, not just a payday, you start to see why this matters so much. This isn't just about this month's check. It's about setting the baseline for the entire year. So how does this hit you personally? Who comes out ahead? Who needs to be cautious? Where are the biggest surprises hiding? This is where January stops being abstract and starts hitting your wallet. The same update that helps one person can quietly hurt another. That's why so many people feel confused, frustrated, or even betrayed when their payment arrives. If you're a Social Security retiree, January may bring a noticeable increase. On paper, it looks like a win. A higher monthly benefit feels like relief. But here's the catch. That increase can push your income just high enough to affect other things tied to your benefit. Medicare premiums, tax withholding, even eligibility for assistance programs you might not think about every day. So while your gross benefit goes up, your take-home amount may not feel as generous as you hoped. For SSDI recipients, the picture is mixed. Some people see clean increases with no complications. Others run into income reporting issues if they worked at all last year, even temporarily. January is when the system reconciles what you earned with what you were allowed to earn. And if those numbers don't line up, you could see adjustments, letters, or follow-up requests. That can be stressful, especially if you thought everything was already settled. If you receive SSI, this part is critical. SSI is the most sensitive to January changes. Income limits reset. Resource thresholds are reevaluated. Living arrangements are reassessed. Even small changes, a few extra dollars in your account, help from family, or a temporary change in housing, can suddenly matter. For some people, that means their January payment looks different, sometimes higher, sometimes lower, sometimes delayed, while the system double-checks eligibility. Here's something people don't like to talk about. January creates winners and losers. Some people benefit from updated calculations. Others get caught in the middle. And those in that middle group are the ones most likely to feel surprised. You open your bank app expecting one number and you see another. That moment can trigger panic. But panic doesn't help. Understanding does. Now listen carefully. A delayed or adjusted payment does not automatically mean your benefits are gone. In most cases, it means the system is verifying something. but ignoring it is the worst thing you can do. January letters get missed, notices get set aside, and then, weeks later, people are scrambling because a simple request went unanswered. Another group affected this month includes survivors and dependents. Benefit calculations for these groups can shift based on annual updates tied to the primary beneficiary's record. That means even if nothing in your household changed, your payment could still move slightly. Again, not a mistake. Just how the system updates itself at the start of the year. Let's talk about budgeting. This is where the emotional weight hits hardest. Many people plan January down to the dollar. Rent, food, utilities, medications, transportation. When the number changes, even a little, the stress is real. And when changes aren't explained clearly, people assume the worst. But here's the truth. Most officials won't say plainly. January is bumpy, almost every year. The system is massive. Millions of payments are recalculated at once. That doesn't excuse confusion, but it explains it. And the people who fare best are the ones who stay informed and proactive. Before you start worrying about worst-case scenarios, here's something important you need to hear. Most January issues settle quickly. Payments stabilize. Amounts become predictable again, but only if you understand what to watch for and what to do next. Now let's talk about what happens next. This is where confidence replaces confusion. January may feel overwhelming, but it doesn't last forever. What matters most is how you move forward from here. Once January payments are processed, the system begins to stabilize. Amounts settle. Schedules become predictable again, and most people see their benefits continue normally for the rest of the year. That's why this moment isn't about panic. It's about awareness. Knowing what to expect puts you back in control. Here's what you should be doing right now. Check your payment carefully, not just the deposit date, but the amount. Compare it to December. Look for any notices in the mail or online. Even small letters matter. That's how the system communicates changes. If something looks off, don't assume the worst. Delays and adjustments in January are common. Stay alert. Respond early. That's how problems stay small. Let's look ahead. What happens in January sets the tone for the year. Your benefit amount becomes your baseline. Budgeting becomes easier once you know the real number you're working with. And once the dust settles, most people find they can breathe again. Here's the reassurance you need to hear. These programs exist to support you. They aren't perfect. They can be frustrating, but they don't disappear overnight. Knowledge is your strongest protection. The more informed you are, the less power uncertainty has over you. Remember this, you are not alone. Millions of people are navigating the same questions right now. Confusion doesn't mean failure. It means the system is complex, and you're learning how to stay ahead of it. Stay informed, stay prepared, and most importantly, stay calm. You've got this.